Imagine alien empires that have conquered star systems for millennia, races that have perfected warfare across dimensions, and councils that have orchestrated the fall of entire species. Now picture their shock when primitive humans don't cower in terror at their ultimate declaration of war, but instead burst into laughter and ask, "Is that the best you've got?" This isn't just another story about human resilience. This is about what happens when predators realize they've been hunting the apex predator all along. When beings who thought they understood warfare meet a species that turned conflict into an art form, sport, and daily entertainment. When the galaxy's most feared entities discover that humans don't just fight to survive, they fight because they genuinely enjoy it. Get ready for a tale where humanity's greatest weapon isn't technology or numbers, but something far more terrifying. The fact that humans are the only species in the galaxy that actually smiles when someone picks a fight with them. The galaxy declared war on humanity, expecting submission. Instead, they got a species that had been waiting their entire existence for someone worthy enough to make things interesting. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called with unprecedented haste. Representatives from over 2,000 star systems filled the massive amphitheater that floated in the neutral zone between the Andromeda and Milky Way galaxies. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert the cacophony of alien languages, clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses into something resembling unified communication. At the center of it all stood Supreme Chancellor Vexthera, her 6 eyes scanning the assembled delegates with barely contained urgency. Her crystalline exoskeleton caught the light from a dozen different suns streaming through the chamber's transparent dome, creating prismatic patterns that reflected her agitated state. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," she began, her voice amplified across the vast space. "We face an unprecedented threat. A species so dangerous, so fundamentally wrong in their approach to existence, that immediate action must be taken." A low murmur rippled through the assembly. The Zephyrian delegates' tentacles twitched nervously, while the representatives from the Titanium Collective adjusted their mechanical forms with anxious clicks and whirs. Even the ancient ethereals, beings of pure energy who rarely showed concern for physical matters, flickered with what could only be described as worry. "The species in question," Vexthera continued, "calls themselves humans. They inhabit a small blue planet in an unremarkable star system they've named after their sun. By all accounts, they should be insignificant. Their technology is primitive, their bodies fragile, their lifespans laughably short." She paused, letting the description sink in. Several delegates exchanged confused glances. If these humans were so primitive, why call an emergency session? However, the Chancellor's voice took on a darker tone. "Our surveillance operations have revealed something deeply disturbing about their nature. These humans are not merely violent. They are enthusiastically violent. They do not fight out of necessity alone. They fight for sport, for entertainment, for no reason other than to see who is stronger." Ambassador Krilltak of the warrior caste leaned forward, his battle-scarred carapace reflecting his interest. "Chancellor, surely you exaggerate. Many species engage in combat for dominance or territory. This is natural." "Natural, yes," Vexthera agreed. "But these humans have taken it to levels that defy comprehension. They create conflicts when none exist. They invent games based on combat. They write stories and create visual entertainment focused entirely on war and violence. Most disturbing of all, they seem to enjoy the experience of being challenged." She gestured, and a holographic display materialized above the assembly. Images from Earth flickered across it: boxing matches, mixed martial arts competitions, action movies, video games filled with combat, historical documentaries celebrating military victories and defeats alike. "Observe their recreational activities," she said. "They voluntarily enter enclosed spaces to strike each other until one cannot continue. They cheer for this. They pay to watch it. When not physically fighting, they simulate battles using electronic devices. Their children play war games. Their stories celebrate warriors and soldiers above all other professions." The assembly watched in growing horror as the images continued. Humans scaling dangerous mountains for the challenge. Humans jumping from perfectly safe aircraft for fun. Humans deliberately seeking out dangerous animals to observe or hunt. Humans creating increasingly complex and violent sports. But, surely, interjected the crystalline collective's representative, her song-like voice carrying across the chamber. This violence is directed only at their own kind? Internal aggression often diminishes when faced with external threats. Vexthara's expression grew grimmer. That is where you are catastrophically wrong, Ambassador. We have observed their response to the few minor incursions other species have made into their space. 3 separate civilizations have encountered humans in the past century. The hologram shifted to show space battles. Though the quality was poor, most of the recording species hadn't survived to provide clear footage. The Corvin Expeditionary Force encountered a human vessel near their system's edge. The humans were clearly outgunned, outnumbered, and technologically inferior. Logic dictated they should have surrendered or fled. Instead, they initiated combat while transmitting what our linguists have determined was laughter. A collective gasp arose from several species. The concept of finding humor in mortal peril was alien to most galactic civilizations. The human vessel was destroyed, Vexthara continued, but not before crippling 2 Corvin cruisers. As their ship fell apart around them, the humans continued to fight. Their final transmission, translated roughly, was, "At least we took some of you with us." They seemed pleased with this outcome. Ambassador Thrin of the Peaceful Union raised a tentacle. Perhaps they were simply desperate. That was not an isolated incident. The Chancellor cut him off. The Ralthani Hive encountered a human research station. 43 humans against a swarm of 2,000 Ralthani warriors. The humans fortified their position and held out for 18 standard days. When finally, overrun, they had eliminated over 800 attackers. But here's what disturbs us most. Intercepted communications show they were encouraging each other, sharing tactical jokes, and actually complaining when the fighting became too easy. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The idea of finding combat too easy when facing overwhelming odds was beyond most species' comprehension. The third incident, Vexthara said, her voice now heavy with something approaching dread, involved the Nezari pirates. Known throughout 7 sectors for their brutality, they attacked a human cargo vessel. The ship's manifest showed it carried medical supplies and food. A purely civilian target. She paused, letting the implications settle. The humans aboard that vessel improvised weapons from their medical equipment and food preparation tools. When the Nezari boarded, they found themselves fighting opponents who showed no fear, no desperation, only what can be described as professional interest in the combat techniques of their attackers. 3 humans held off a boarding party of 20 Nezari. When reinforcements arrived, they found the humans had not only survived but had begun questioning their captured enemies about Nezari fighting methods. The silence stretched on. Finally, war leader Morok of the Iron Confederation spoke, his mechanical voice echoing in the vast chamber. Their physical capabilities? Remarkable durability, Vexthara replied. They can function with injuries that would incapacitate most species. Their pain tolerance is extraordinary, but more concerning is their apparent ability to ignore pain entirely when engaged in combat. They seem to enter an altered mental state where self-preservation becomes secondary to achieving victory. Their numbers? Approximately 8 billion on their homeworld, with small populations scattered across several nearby systems. Militarily, they maintain multiple competing armed forces that regularly train against each other. They call these exercises, but our observers note these are conducted with an enthusiasm typically reserved for actual warfare. Their technology level? Vexthara hesitated. Primitive by our standards, but advancing rapidly. However, technology may be irrelevant. They have shown remarkable adaptability in using whatever resources are available as weapons. Their military doctrine emphasizes improvisation and unconventional tactics. High Inquisitor Zalani of the Psion Collective leaned forward, her mental probe extending toward the Chancellor. What threat assessment has been determined? Code Crimson, Vexthara replied simply. The reaction was immediate. Delegates throughout the chamber began urgent discussions in their native languages. Code Crimson hadn't been declared in over 2 millennia, not since the Devourer Wars. We have reached a unanimous decision among the Security Council, the Chancellor continued. Humanity must be eliminated before they advance beyond their current technological limitations. The combination of their violent nature, their apparent enjoyment of conflict, and their tactical adaptability poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Senator Kwan of the Democratic System stood, his forearms spreading in a gesture of concern. Chancellor, surely this is excessive. Have we attempted diplomatic contact? 3 attempts were made, she replied. The first resulted in the human diplomatic team challenging our ambassador to what they called friendly sparring matches. The second ended with humans expressing fascination about our military capabilities and asking detailed questions about our weapons systems. The third, she paused. The third resulted in the human representative suggesting that conflict between our species might be fun and proposing a series of limited engagements to see how both sides perform. The chamber erupted in horrified chatter. The concept of warfare as entertainment was fundamentally incomprehensible to most galactic species, who viewed conflict as a last resort or biological necessity. Therefore, Vexthara announced, her voice cutting through the noise, the Galactic Council formally declares humanity a threat to galactic peace and stability. A coordinated military response will commence in 90 standard days. All member species are required to contribute forces to the human elimination fleet. War Leader Morok's mechanical form straightened. What level of force are we deploying? Everything, the Chancellor replied without hesitation. 12,000 warships from 53 species. We will not make the mistake of underestimating these humans again. Their homeworld and all human settlements will be reduced to cosmic dust. No survivors, no prisoners, no mercy. The vote was called and passed overwhelmingly. Only a handful of pacifist species abstained, and they pledged not to interfere with the operation. As the session concluded and delegates began to disperse, one question hung unspoken in the air. If humans were truly as dangerous as described, why had they not already begun expanding aggressively into galactic space? Ambassador Kriltak posed this question to the Chancellor as she gathered her materials. Perhaps, Vexthara replied, her 6 eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. They have been waiting for someone to provide them with a proper challenge. The thought sent a chill through the assembly hall that lingered long after the last delegate had departed. 90 days to prepare for what many hoped would be the galaxy's final war. 90 days to eliminate a species that smiled when facing impossible odds. 90 days to destroy beings who seemed to view extinction as just another interesting competition. As the massive station powered down its artificial day cycle, Vexthara stood alone at the observation deck, watching the distant spiral of the Milky Way galaxy. Somewhere in that swirl of stars and possibility, 8 billion humans continued their daily lives, unaware that their entire species had just been marked for extinction. She tried to feel satisfaction at the decisive action taken today. Instead, she found herself wondering why the thought of those humans laughing in the face of overwhelming odds filled her with something that felt remarkably like dread. The transmission arrived on Earth at 14:32 Greenwich Mean Time on a Tuesday afternoon, intercepted simultaneously by listening posts in Antarctica, the Atacama Desert, and the far side of the Moon. The message was brief, formal, and delivered in 17 different languages, suggesting the senders had done their homework on human communication methods. Dr. Sarah Chun, director of the Global Space Communications Network, stared at her monitor in the underground facility beneath NORAD. The translation algorithms had worked overtime to convert the alien script into readable English, but the meaning was crystal clear regardless of the language used. To the species designated as human, your continued existence poses a threat to galactic stability. In 73 of your solar days, a fleet will arrive to eliminate your species entirely. You may use this time to make peace with whatever deities you worship. Resistance is futile. Survival is impossible. This is not a negotiation. Dr. Chun read the message 3 more times, then reached for the red phone that connected directly to every major world leader. Within minutes, the notification had reached the President of the United States, the Secretary General of the United Nations, the Chinese Premier, the Russian President, and every other head of state on Earth. By 1500 hours Greenwich Mean Time, the emergency session of the UN Security Council was already underway. President Elizabeth Morrison took her seat at the head of the Oval Table in the White House Situation Room 2 hours later. Around her sat the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the director of the CIA, the head of NASA, and representatives from every major military branch. The mood should have been one of desperation or panic. Instead, there was an energy in the room that Dr. Chen found oddly familiar. It reminded her of her brother's face on Christmas morning when he was 8 years old. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Morrison began, "we have received what appears to be a legitimate threat of extinction from an alien alliance. Intelligence estimates suggest this fleet will vastly outgun anything we can put into space. Dr. Reeves, what's our technological assessment?" Dr. Marcus Reeves, head of the Advanced Defense Projects Agency, consulted his tablet. "Madam President, based on the sophistication of the transmission and the coordination implied by their message, we're looking at technology centuries ahead of ours. Their ability to translate our languages suggests extensive surveillance. If they can deploy the fleet size they're claiming, conventional resistance would be challenging." "Challenging," repeated General Patricia Hayes, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. A slow grin spread across her weathered face. "Doctor, in military terminology, what exactly do you mean by challenging?" Dr. Reeves shifted uncomfortably. "Well, General, by any reasonable assessment, we would be completely outmatched. Their technology, numbers, and experience would give them overwhelming advantages. Military doctrine would suggest immediate surrender or evacuation as the only viable options." The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds before General Hayes began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, but quickly grew into full, hearty laughter that echoed off the conference room walls. Within moments, Admiral Robert Sterling joined in, followed by Air Force General Lisa Park, and then Marine Corps Commandant General Michael Torres. Dr. Reeves looked around the room in confusion. "I'm sorry, did I say something amusing?" "Doctor," President Morrison said, her own lips twitching into a smile. "What you just described isn't a problem. That's what we in the business call a target-rich environment." The laughter intensified. CIA Director James Walsh wiped tears from his eyes. 73 days to prepare for a fight with aliens who think we're going to surrender. Christmas came early this year. Dr. Reeves turned to Dr. Chun, seeking support. "Surely you understand the gravity of this situation? We're facing extinction." Dr. Chun, whose brother had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and currently worked as a firefighter in Detroit, nodded thoughtfully. "Doctor, let me ask you something. In your professional opinion, what do you think would happen if someone walked into a biker bar in Texas and announced they were going to fight everyone inside?" "Well, obviously they'd be severely outnumbered and would likely be injured or worse." Dr. Reeves stopped mid-sentence as understanding dawned on his face. "Exactly," Dr. Chen continued. "But here's the thing about humans, Doctor. We're the species that sees severely outnumbered and thinks this is going to be interesting." President Morrison stood and walked to the large display screen. "Gentlemen, ladies, let me be clear about something. Earth has been at peace for exactly 0% of recorded human history. We have never, not once, existed as a species without someone, somewhere on this planet, engaged in armed conflict. We have turned warfare into an art form, a science, and a form of entertainment." She gestured to the display, which showed global military statistics. Currently, Earth's nations maintain active-duty military personnel numbering approximately 26 million, with reserves totaling another 40 million. We have enough nuclear weapons to sterilize our own planet several times over. We have developed weapons that can kill from orbit, from across continents, and from underwater trenches. General Torres leaned forward. "Madam President, if I may add something, these aliens have made a critical error in their assessment. They've given us 73 days to prepare. In World War II, we went from a peacetime economy to full wartime production in less time than that. We've been planning for hypothetical alien invasion scenarios since the 1950s. What's our current space-based defensive capability?" the president asked. Admiral Sterling consulted his notes. "We have 43 military satellites currently operational, including the new kinetic bombardment platform that was classified until about 5 minutes ago. The Space Force has been testing directed energy weapons and electromagnetic pulse devices. We've got 3 operational lunar bases and 2 asteroid mining operations that could be converted to weapons platforms. Ground-based assets. General Park took over. Every major nation has been developing anti-aircraft and anti-satellite systems for decades. The new laser defense networks in Nevada and Siberia are operational. We've got railgun prototypes, particle beam experiments, and enough conventional ordnance to level a continent. Dr. Reeves interrupted again. But surely you understand that all of this is primitive compared to what they must possess. The military leaders exchanged glances before General Hayes answered. Doctor, let me tell you about the last time someone drastically underestimated human military capability. December 7, 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. They had superior technology, better trained pilots, and achieved complete tactical surprise. Know what happened next? We won the war. We didn't just win, Admiral Sterling corrected. We developed weapons they couldn't imagine, built fleets larger than they thought possible, and ended the conflict by demonstrating that humans, when properly motivated, can unlock the power of the atom itself. All in less than 4 years. President Morrison returned to her seat. These aliens think they're dealing with a primitive species that will panic when threatened. They've never met humans who've been dreaming about this exact scenario since we first looked up at the stars. Dr. Chun, what's public reaction to the announcement? Dr. Chun had been monitoring global communications throughout the meeting. Madam President, that's perhaps the most interesting part. We leaked a sanitized version of the threat through social media about an hour ago. Initial response analysis shows panic among civilian populations, as expected. However, military recruitment websites crashed due to traffic overload. The Pentagon's volunteer coordinator reports they've received over 2 million applications for emergency enlistment in the past hour alone. Interesting, the president mused. What about our allies? The British Prime Minister's response was, and I quote, about bloody time someone brought us a proper scrap. The Russian president has begun mobilizing their entire space program and asked if we need help building bigger rockets. The Chinese have offered to share their orbital defense platforms. Even the Swiss have volunteered their military engineers. General Torres was grinning now. Ma'am, I think we need to face facts here. Earth has been preparing for this fight since we first realized we weren't alone in the universe. Every science fiction movie, every military simulation, every video game about space combat has been training. Our pilots have been practicing these scenarios since childhood. What's our strategic assessment? President Morrison asked. Admiral Sterling stood and moved to the holographic display. Honestly, Madam President, if these aliens were smart, they would have glassed us from orbit without warning. By giving us 73 days and announcing their intentions, they've made a tactical error that could cost them the war. Explain. They're assuming we'll behave like every other species they've encountered. Surrender, flee, or panic. They don't understand that humans hear impossible odds and start calculating how to even them. They've given us time to prepare, and, worse, they've given us a clear enemy to unite against. Dr. Reeves was looking pale. You're all talking like we can actually win this. Doctor, President Morrison said, standing up, let me explain something about human psychology. We're the species that looked at the highest mountain on Earth and decided to climb it because it's there. We're the ones who saw the deepest ocean trenches and figured out how to go down there just to see what was at the bottom. When we discovered atoms, we split them. When we figured out genetics, we started rewriting DNA. We are not a species that accepts limitations. She walked around the table, her voice gaining strength. These aliens think they're bringing overwhelming force against a primitive species. What they're actually doing is providing every human on Earth with the ultimate test of our capabilities. And, Doctor, there is nothing humans love more than proving people wrong about what we can accomplish. The meeting continued for 3 more hours, but the tone had been set. By the end of the session, Earth's response strategy was crystallizing around a simple principle. If the aliens wanted to fight the human race, they were about to discover exactly what 8 billion apex predators could accomplish when given a common enemy and enough motivation. As the participants filed out of the situation room, Dr. Chun overheard General Hayes speaking quietly to Admiral Sterling. Bob, she was saying, I've been in the military for 35 years. I've never seen anything like this response. It's like the entire species just got challenged to a fight. Patricia, the admiral replied, that's exactly what happened. And these aliens have no idea what they've just unleashed. Outside the Pentagon, the sun was setting over Washington, D.C. In 72 days and 16 hours, the largest fleet in galactic history would arrive in Earth's solar system, expecting to find a cowering, primitive species begging for mercy. Instead, they would find humanity doing what it had always done best, turning an impossible situation into an opportunity to show the universe exactly why humans didn't have any natural predators. The galaxy had declared war on the human race. Earth's response could be summarized in 3 words that had echoed through every conflict in human history: bring it on. 60 days remained when the first disturbing reports began filtering back to the Galactic Council through their long-range surveillance network. What they observed on Earth defied every predictive model they had developed for pre-extinction species behavior. Supreme Chancellor Vexthera stood in the Council's Intelligence Center, her 6 eyes focused on the massive holographic displays showing Earth from multiple vantage points. Around her, analysts from dozens of species worked frantically to process the incoming data streams. Chancellor, reported Senior Analyst Kethmar, his tentacles quivering with confusion, the humans are not behaving according to any known pattern. Explain, Vexthera commanded, though she had been observing the same troubling data for the past week. Typically, when faced with extinction-level threats, species exhibit one of 3 responses: panic and chaos leading to societal collapse, desperate attempts at evacuation, or submission attempts through diplomatic channels. The humans are doing none of these. The main display shifted to show satellite imagery of Earth's surface. Instead of the expected chaos, the planet showed signs of unprecedented organization and activity. What we're seeing, Kethmar continued, appears to be the entire planet mobilizing for war. Every nation has suspended normal economic activity. Their factories have converted to military production. They've shut down entertainment industries, luxury goods manufacturing, and non-essential services. In 60 days, they've essentially transformed their entire civilization into a war machine. Ambassador Kriltak of the warrior caste leaned forward, his battle-scarred carapace reflecting interest rather than concern. This is not necessarily unusual. Many species attempt military resistance before accepting inevitable defeat. Sir, interrupted junior analyst HFY, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. Respectfully, this goes far beyond normal military preparation. The scale of their mobilization is unprecedented. She gestured, and the display zoomed in on various locations across Earth. They've constructed over 200 new manufacturing facilities in the past month alone. Their space elevators are operating at maximum capacity. They've converted civilian aircraft into military transports. Most concerning, they've begun launching construction materials toward their moon at a rate that suggests they're building something massive. Vexthera's primary eyes narrowed. Show me their population centers. The image shifted to major human cities. Instead of panic-induced evacuations or military lockdowns, the streets showed organized activity. Long lines of humans waited outside military recruitment centers. Factories worked around the clock, marked by the distinctive heat signatures of continuous operation. Their recruitment numbers, Kethmar reported, consulting his data tablet, have exceeded all projections. They've enlisted over 40 million additional military personnel in the past month. But here's what's disturbing. They're not just enlisting young, healthy specimens. Elderly humans, humans with physical disabilities, even their intellectual classes are volunteering for military service. Perhaps desperation drives them to accept any willing bodies, suggested the representative from the Hive Collective. That's what we initially thought, HFY replied. But analysis of their communication networks reveals something different. They're organizing these diverse volunteers into specialized roles based on skill sets rather than combat capability. Their elderly are being used for strategic planning and logistics. Their disabled are being assigned to technical and intelligence roles. Their scientists and engineers are developing new weapons technologies at an unprecedented pace. War Leader Morok's mechanical form clicked with interest. What weapons technologies? The display shifted again, showing industrial facilities and testing grounds. This is where our analysis becomes concerning. They've accelerated development programs that were apparently already in progress. Directed energy weapons, kinetic bombardment systems, electromagnetic pulse devices, and something they're calling relativistic kill vehicles. A murmur of unease rippled through the assembled observers. Relativistic kill vehicles were theoretical weapons that even many advanced species considered too dangerous to develop. Furthermore, HFY continued. They've begun launching what appear to be automated manufacturing platforms toward the asteroid belt. Initial observations suggest they're planning to convert asteroids into weapon systems. Chancellor Vexthera studied the data streams with growing unease. What about their communication patterns? Are they attempting to contact us for negotiations? No, Chancellor, Kethmar replied. Their communications are almost entirely focused on coordination of military efforts. We've intercepted millions of messages, and the consistent theme is tactical planning, resource allocation, and weapons development. There are no attempts at diplomatic outreach, no pleas for mercy, no offers of surrender. What is their emotional state? Surely they must be experiencing fear. The analysts exchanged glances before HFY answered. This is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of our observations. Psychological analysis of their public communications suggests their dominant emotional state is not fear, desperation, or panic. It appears to be excitement. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of translation devices. Clarify, Vexthera demanded. Their social media networks, entertainment broadcasts, and public speeches all show signs of what can only be described as anticipation. They're treating this as what they call the ultimate test. Their leaders speak of proving humanity's worth and showing the galaxy what humans can do. Their military personnel are expressing eagerness for combat. Their civilian population is demonstrating unprecedented unity and determination. War leader Morok's optical sensors focused on the displays. Show me their military preparations. The image shifted to show training facilities, shipyards, and testing ranges. They've constructed 17 new space-capable shipyards in the past month. Their existing naval vessels are being retrofitted with experimental weapons. They've established training facilities for what they call zero-gravity combat. Most significantly, they've begun testing something they refer to as kamikaze protocols. Explain this term, Vexthera ordered. Historical analysis reveals that kamikaze refers to a human military tactic where pilots deliberately crash their aircraft into enemy targets, accepting certain death to inflict maximum damage. Intelligence suggests they're developing space-based versions of this tactic using automated and manned vessels. The silence stretched longer this time. The concept of deliberately choosing death to inflict damage was comprehensible to warrior species, but the scale the humans were apparently planning was unprecedented. How many of these weapons are they preparing? Asked Ambassador Thran of the Peaceful Union. Current estimates suggest they're converting approximately 30% of their orbital infrastructure into weapons platforms. They're also launching what appear to be automated weapon systems toward the outer edges of their solar system. Strategic analysis suggests they're attempting to create multiple defensive perimeters. Krilltak's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Defensive perimeters indicate they plan to make a stand at their homeworld rather than attempting evacuation. This shows either courage or stupidity. Sir, Kethmar interrupted, there's additional intelligence that suggests neither interpretation is correct. Intercepted communications from their space agencies indicate they're not planning purely defensive strategies. They appear to be developing offensive capabilities designed to carry the fight beyond their solar system. Impossible, snorted the representative from the Technological Supremacy Union. They lack faster-than-light travel capabilities. Correct, HFY acknowledged, but they're developing what they call generation ships equipped with weapons systems. These appear designed for long-term missions that could last centuries. They're planning for the possibility that even if Earth falls, human survivors will continue the conflict across the galaxy. The implications of this revelation settled over the intelligence center like a dark cloud. Species that planned for multi-generational warfare were rare in galactic history, and those that did so were invariably among the most dangerous enemies the galaxy had ever faced. There's more, Kethmar added reluctantly. Psychological profiles of human leadership suggest they're not planning for survival in the traditional sense. They're planning for what they call making it count. Analysis indicates they intend to inflict maximum casualties on our forces regardless of the cost to themselves. Chancellor Vexthera turned away from the displays, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the ominous glow of the intelligence screens. What is our fleet's current assessment of these preparations? Fleet Command maintains that human efforts are irrelevant given our technological superiority, reported the military liaison. Admiral Cortih estimates the campaign will conclude within days of arrival. Human weapons are considered primitive and their numbers insufficient to pose meaningful resistance. And what is your assessment? She asked the intelligence team. The analysts looked uncomfortable. Finally, Zephi spoke. Chancellor, respectfully, we believe Fleet Command may be underestimating the situation. Humans are not responding like any species we've previously encountered. They appear to view this conflict as an opportunity rather than a catastrophe. An opportunity for what? Based on communication intercepts and behavioral analysis, Kethmar answered. They seem to view this as an opportunity to demonstrate their capabilities to the galaxy. They're treating our invasion fleet as a test of their species' worth. Vexthera considered this information. In her 3 centuries of service to the Galactic Council, she had overseen the elimination of 17 species deemed too dangerous for galactic society. None had reacted to extinction threats with excitement and eager preparation for combat. Continue monitoring their activities, she ordered. Report any significant changes immediately. As the intelligence staff returned to their duties, Vexthera remained at the observation deck, staring toward the distant Milky Way. For the first time since the decision had been made, she found herself questioning whether the Council had made the right choice in giving the humans advance warning. Most disturbing of all was an intercepted transmission from the human military command that analysis had just decoded. It was brief, addressed to all human forces, and signed by their senior military leadership. 60 days remaining. The enemy is bringing the largest fleet in galactic history to destroy humanity. Our response, challenge accepted. Make ready for the greatest fight in human history. Remember, we are not trying to survive this. We are trying to win it. Show them why Earth has no apex predators. Show them why humans don't have any natural enemies. Make it count. As she read those words, Vexthera experienced something she had not felt in centuries. The possibility that the galaxy might have made a terrible mistake. In 60 days, the largest military force in galactic history would arrive at Earth expecting to find a primitive species cowering in terror. Instead, they would encounter 8 billion humans who had spent their entire existence preparing for exactly this moment, led by military leaders who viewed impossible odds not as a reason for surrender, but as a reason to fight harder. The humans were not preparing to die. They were preparing to take as many of their enemies with them as possible. And based on their rapid mobilization and innovative weapon development, that number might be significantly higher than anyone in the galaxy was prepared to accept. The Galactic Extinction Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system exactly 73 days after their ultimatum had been delivered. 12,000 vessels stretched across space in a formation designed to inspire terror in any species that witnessed it. The fleet represented the combined military might of 53 different civilizations, each contributing their most advanced warships and experienced crews. Admiral Cortih stood on the bridge of the flagship Inevitable Conclusion, his 4 arms clasped behind his back as he surveyed the tactical displays. Around him, officers from a dozen different species worked at stations designed to coordinate the largest military operation in galactic history. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, a crystalline being whose voice resonated like wind chimes. We have achieved optimal formation. All fleet elements report ready status. Excellent, Cortih replied, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Begin long-range scanning of the target system. I want detailed analysis of their defensive capabilities before we proceed. The main display lit up with sensor data streaming in from the fleet's advanced reconnaissance vessels. What they found made the bridge crew exchange confused glances. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, her crystalline form flickering with uncertainty. Initial scans are detecting significantly more artificial structures in this system than predicted. Elaborate. Sir, intelligence estimated approximately 50 space-based installations around the third planet. Current scans show over 300 artificial satellites and structures in orbit around their homeworld alone. Corth's primary eyes narrowed. Construction debris from their preparation efforts? Negative, sir. Energy signatures suggest these are active installations. Many appear to be equipped with what our systems identify as weapons. Primitive weapons, Corth dismissed. What about their fleet strength? The sensor operator, a tentacled being from the observation cast, consulted his readings. Sir, this is unusual. We're detecting approximately 400 vessels of various sizes distributed throughout the system, significantly more than intelligence projected. Still vastly outnumbered, the Admiral noted with satisfaction. Begin advance. All ships maintain formation. We'll demonstrate overwhelming superiority before demanding surrender. As the massive fleet began moving toward Earth, automated systems throughout the solar system detected their approach. On Luna Base, General Patricia Hayes received the alert while reviewing final preparations with her command staff. Contact confirmed, reported Colonel Martinez, monitoring the long-range sensors. 12,000 vessels, various configurations. They're maintaining fleet formation and approaching at sublight speeds. General Hayes studied the tactical display showing the alien fleet's approach vector. Estimated arrival at Earth orbit? 18 hours at current velocity, ma'am. Perfect, she replied, a grin spreading across her weathered face. Signal all commands. Operation Great Filter is now active. Transmit activation codes to all defense platforms. Across the solar system, human installations that had appeared to be simple mining operations, communication satellites, and research stations began revealing their true nature. Asteroid facilities unfolded massive railgun assemblies. Seemingly harmless relay satellites deployed antimatter warheads. Deep space monitoring posts activated directed energy weapons with enough power to crack moon-sized objects. On Earth, President Morrison stood in the newly constructed war room, watching real-time feeds from across the system. Around her, representatives from every nation on Earth monitored their contributions to humanity's defense. Madam President, reported Admiral Sterling. All orbital platforms report ready. Luna Base is operational. The asteroid belt installations are armed and tracking targets. Deep space hunter-killer drones are deployed and awaiting orders. What's the enemy's current disposition? She asked. They're approaching in a standard intimidation formation, General Torres observed, studying the tactical display. Maximum visual impact, designed to terrify defenders into submission. They're broadcasting on all frequencies demanding our surrender. Are they now? President Morrison's eyes gleamed. Admiral, please respond to their demand. Admiral Sterling nodded and activated the communication system. The message that went out to the Galactic Extinction Fleet was broadcast on every frequency, in every human language, and accompanied by video feeds from across Earth showing humans at their duty stations. To the alien fleet currently approaching our system, this is Admiral Robert Sterling, representing the unified military forces of Earth. We have received your demand for surrender. Our response is as follows: negative. We decline your generous offer of extinction. Instead, we extend a counter-proposal. Turn around now and leave our system, or discover exactly why humanity evolved without natural predators. You have until you reach the orbit of Mars to make your decision. After that, we will make it for you. The message included detailed scans of the fleet, identifying ship classes and weapons configurations with accuracy that should have been impossible for a primitive species to achieve. Aboard the inevitable conclusion, the bridge crew stared at their communication displays in stunned silence. Admiral, the communications officer reported, we've received a response to our surrender demand. Play it, Corth ordered. As Admiral Sterling's message played through the ship's translation systems, the alien crew's confusion deepened. This was not the desperate pleading or terrified submission they expected. The human's tone was professional, confident, and carried an undertone that sounded remarkably like amusement. Analysis, Corth demanded. Sir, the tactical officer replied hesitantly. Their message included detailed specifications of our fleet composition. vessel classes, armament configurations, and power signatures. This level of intelligence gathering suggests capabilities we didn't anticipate. Impossible. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Additionally, the communications officer added, we're receiving multiple transmissions from various points throughout their system. It appears they have significantly more installations than intelligence indicated. War Leader Vector, the fleet's senior tactical coordinator, studied the incoming data. Admiral, recommend we halt advance and conduct detailed reconnaissance. Absolutely not, Courtier snapped. We will not be intimidated by primitive posturing. Continue approach. Begin broadcasting standard pre-elimination psychological warfare protocols. The fleet's psychological operations specialists began transmitting carefully designed messages intended to break human morale. Displays of the fleet's size, recordings of other species' surrender ceremonies, and detailed descriptions of the futility of resistance. The human response came within minutes. This time, it was a video transmission from Earth showing a massive stadium filled with humans. At the center, a woman in military uniform stood at a podium. The stadium's screens displayed the alien fleet approach in real time. Citizens of Earth, General Hayes announced, the alien fleet has declined our generous offer to leave peacefully. As you can see, they have brought approximately 12,000 ships to destroy our homeworld. Our response. The crowd's reaction was deafening. Cheering, applause, and what sounded like excited shouting filled the stadium. Signs held by spectators read messages like, "Bring it on," "Finally, a challenge," and "Earth Defense Force," making aliens regret their choices since 2157. Ladies and gentlemen, General Hayes continued, we have been preparing for this moment since our species first looked up at the stars. Today, we show the galaxy what humans do when someone threatens our home. Today, we demonstrate why Earth never developed apex predators. They're about to discover that humans are the apex predators. The transmission ended with footage of massive crowds throughout Earth's cities, not fleeing in panic, but gathering in public spaces to watch the approaching battle. Many wore military uniforms. Others carried signs supporting Earth's defense forces. Children drew pictures of spaceships and humans defeating aliens. Admiral, the tactical officer reported, voice trembling, we're detecting energy buildups throughout their system. Multiple installations are powering weapons systems. What type of weapons? Sir, some of these energy signatures are beyond our classification systems. We're reading power outputs that approach capital ship levels from installations we assumed were mining operations. Courtier studied the tactical display with growing unease. Red warning markers now dotted the entire solar system, indicating active weapons emplacements. The number continued to climb as passive installations revealed their true nature. Sir, the sensor operator reported, we're also detecting movement from the asteroid belt. Multiple large masses have changed trajectory and are heading toward our position. Define large masses, Courtier demanded. Sir, they appear to be asteroids. But they're under power and equipped with propulsion systems. Mass estimates suggest some exceed 1 million metric tons. War Leader Vector's tactical display began flashing with threat warnings. Admiral, recommend immediate withdrawal for strategic reassessment. We do not withdraw from primitives. Courtier snarled. All ships, battle formation. Begin bombardment of their orbital installations. Show them the futility of resistance. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving another transmission from the surface. Ignore it. Sir, it's addressed to you personally. Against his better judgment, Courtier authorized the transmission. The image that appeared showed a human male in elaborate military uniform standing in what appeared to be a command center surrounded by tactical displays. Admiral Courtier of the vessel Inevitable Conclusion, the human said, I am General Michael Torres, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. We know your name, your ship, and your military record. We've been studying your species' tactical doctrines for the past 73 days. The general paused, consulting a data pad. You're considered one of the finest military strategists in galactic history. 17 successful extinction campaigns. Never defeated. We're honored that the galaxy sent their best to face humanity. He looked directly into the camera with what could only be described as a predatory smile. We've been looking forward to this fight for our entire existence as a species. Thank you for finally giving us worthy opponents. Don't disappoint us." The transmission ended, leaving the alien bridge crew in stunned silence. Admiral Cortich stared at the now-dark communication screen, a growing sense of unease settling in his chest. "Sir," the tactical officer reported quietly, "all human installations have achieved weapon lock on our fleet. We're being targeted by over 300 separate weapons systems." For the first time in his distinguished military career, Admiral Cortich found himself questioning whether he understood the enemy he was facing. The humans weren't behaving like any species he had ever fought. They weren't afraid, weren't desperate, and weren't trying to surrender. They were treating this like a sporting event they had been eagerly anticipating. "All ships," he ordered, his voice lacking its earlier confidence. "Maintain formation but reduce approach speed. I want detailed analysis of every human installation before we proceed." As the massive alien fleet slowed its advance, automated systems throughout Earth's solar system completed their final preparations. In 18 hours, the galaxy would discover that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or numbers. It was the fact that humans were the only known species in the universe that actually enjoyed a fair fight. The first shots of the human galactic war were fired at 1423 Earth Standard Time, when Admiral Cortich finally gave the order to begin bombardment of Earth's outer defensive perimeter. The Galactic Extinction Fleet opened fire with enough concentrated energy to sterilize a dozen worlds, their weapons creating brilliant streams of destruction across the void of space. The return fire began 0.3 seconds later. "What in the seven hells?" Admiral Cortich's exclamation was cut short as his flagship shuddered under impacts that should have been impossible. The inevitable conclusion, protected by shields capable of withstanding a star's coronal discharge, was taking actual damage from human weapons. "Report," he demanded, as alerts flashed across every bridge station. "Sir," his tactical officer replied, her crystalline form flickering with stress patterns, "we're under attack from the asteroid belt installations. They're firing what appear to be rocks, sir." "Rocks? Our shields can deflect planetoid-sized debris." "Yes, sir. But these rocks are moving at significant fractions of light speed. Impact velocities are approaching 12% of c. Even our shields can't deflect that level of kinetic energy." On the main display, the tactical plot showed hundreds of projectiles streaming from human installations throughout the solar system. What Admiral Cortich had dismissed as primitive railguns were revealing themselves to be relativistic kinetic weapons that turned simple iron asteroids into planet-killing projectiles. "Sir," the sensor operator reported, "we're also taking fire from directed energy weapons operating at power levels that exceed our classifications. Multiple installations are generating focused gamma-ray bursts." "Impossible. They lack the technology for such weapons." "Sir, energy output suggests they're using stellar material as ammunition. They appear to have weaponized solar plasma." Throughout the galactic fleet, similar scenes played out aboard vessels that had never expected to face meaningful resistance. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were fighting with weapons that shouldn't have existed and using tactics that violated everything the galaxy understood about primitive species behavior. On Luna Base, General Hayes watched the tactical display with professional satisfaction as her carefully planned defenses engaged the enemy fleet. "Ma'am," reported Colonel Martinez, "kinetic weapons are achieving 78% hit ratios. Enemy shields are proving less effective than projected against relativistic impacts." "Outstanding. What about the gamma-ray projectors?" "Direct hits on 12 enemy vessels. Their shields appear vulnerable to coherent gamma radiation. Weapons teams report they can maintain this rate of fire for approximately 6 hours before requiring stellar material resupply." "And our fleet elements?" Admiral Sterling's voice came through the communication system from the command ship Indomitable, currently accelerating toward the enemy formation. "Ma'am, Task Force Alpha is engaging enemy scouts at the system's edge. Task Force Beta is moving to intercept their main formation. Task Force Gamma remains in reserve as planned." General Hayes studied the battle display with the calm professionalism of someone who had spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. "Admiral, execute Operation Thunderstruck." "With pleasure, General." Throughout the asteroid belt, installations that the aliens had assumed were mining operations revealed their true nature. Massive electromagnetic launchers that had spent months accelerating asteroids to ridiculous velocities released their ammunition simultaneously. Hundreds of multi-million-ton rocks, moving at significant fractions of light speed, streaked toward the alien fleet. Aboard the inevitable conclusion, Admiral Cortich watched the tactical display with growing horror as his fleet began taking casualties that shouldn't have been possible. "Sir," War Leader Vector reported, "we've lost 17 vessels to kinetic impacts. The humans are using asteroids as relativistic kill vehicles. Our point defense systems can't track objects moving that fast. What about our own bombardment? Are we inflicting casualties?" "Sir, negative. Their defensive installations appear to be hardened beyond our intelligence estimates. We're achieving hits, but damage assessment suggests they're built to withstand direct capital ship bombardment." On the tactical display, streams of alien weapons fire struck human installations only to see them continue operating. Earth's defensive platforms had been constructed using lessons learned from 73 days of intensive preparation, built deep into asteroids and moons, designed to absorb enormous amounts of punishment while continuing to function. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander." "Put it through." The image that appeared on the main screen showed Admiral Sterling on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by tactical displays showing the ongoing battle. Behind him, human crew members worked at their stations with calm efficiency that belied the massive space battle raging around them. "Admiral Cortich," Sterling said, his voice carrying across space with crystal clarity, "I wanted to thank you for this opportunity. It's been 400 years since humanity has faced a worthy opponent. We've been looking forward to testing our capabilities against galactic-level military technology." He paused, consulting a tactical display. "I notice you've lost 23 ships in the first hour of engagement. That's actually better performance than our projections suggested. We estimated you'd lose 30 ships by this point." Admiral Cortich stared at the human commander in disbelief. "You projected our losses?" "Of course," Sterling replied matter-of-factly. "We've been studying your species' military doctrine for 73 days. Your tactical patterns, weapon capabilities, defensive strategies. We've run over 10,000 battle simulations based on this engagement. Current performance is tracking within acceptable parameters. This is impossible. You're a primitive species." Sterling's expression shifted to what humans would recognize as polite disagreement. "Admiral, with respect, I think you've misunderstood the situation. You're not fighting a primitive species. You're fighting a species that has spent its entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of warfare. We've been practicing for this fight since we discovered fire." The transmission continued as Human Task Force Alpha engaged the alien fleet's forward elements. On the tactical display, Admiral Cortich watched in growing dismay as human vessels, significantly smaller than his capital ships, began systematically destroying alien cruisers using coordinated tactics that spoke of extensive training and preparation. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "the human vessels are employing weapons we haven't encountered before. They appear to be using antimatter warheads delivered via stealth torpedo systems. How are they targeting our ships so effectively?" "Sir, they're using our own tactical doctrines against us. They're predicting our movements based on standard galactic military protocols and positioning their attacks accordingly." On Earth, President Morrison watched the battle unfold from the Global Defense Command Center, surrounded by representatives from every nation on the planet. The massive displays showed the engagement from multiple angles as humanity's carefully planned defense unfolded exactly as rehearsed. "Madam President," reported General Torres, "first-hour assessment shows enemy losses at 26 vessels destroyed, 43 disabled. Our losses, 0 vessels destroyed, 3 platforms damaged, but operational." "Outstanding. What's the enemy's response?" "They appear to be regrouping for a concentrated assault on our inner defensive perimeter. Intelligence suggests they're beginning to recognize they underestimated our capabilities." "Good. Signal all commands. Proceed to Phase 2. Across the solar system, human installations that had remained hidden during the initial exchange began revealing themselves. Weapons platforms disguised as communication satellites deployed massive particle beam projectors. Mining facilities unveiled conversion plants that had spent months turning asteroids into guided kinetic weapons. Deep space installations activated stealth systems and began moving toward the alien fleet's flanks. Aboard the inevitable conclusion, Admiral Cortih received reports that confirmed his growing suspicion that this battle was not proceeding according to any scenario the Galactic Council had prepared for. "Sir," Vector reported, "we're detecting multiple additional weapons installations throughout the system. Current count shows over 800 active military targets. This exceeds intelligence estimates by a factor of 16. How is this possible? They had only 73 days to prepare." "Sir," the intelligence officer interjected, "analysis of their defensive arrangements suggests these installations were not built in the past 73 days. Construction patterns indicate they've been preparing for large-scale system defense for decades." The implications hit Admiral Cortih like a physical blow. The humans hadn't spent 73 days preparing for this specific invasion. They had spent decades preparing for the possibility of invasion by anyone. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "priority transmission from Galactic Command." Supreme Chancellor Vexthara's image appeared on the auxiliary display, her 6 eyes reflecting the stress patterns that indicated extreme agitation. "Admiral, what is your status?" "Our monitoring stations are detecting energy signatures that suggest significant fleet casualties." "Chancellor," Cortih replied reluctantly, "the humans have proven more capable than anticipated. We have sustained losses, but the situation remains manageable." "Define losses." 43 vessels destroyed, 97 damaged. "However, we maintain overwhelming numerical superiority and 43 vessels." The Chancellor's crystalline exoskeleton flared with bioluminescent stress patterns. "Admiral, you were assigned 12,000 ships specifically to prevent any possibility of resistance." "Chancellor, respectfully, the humans are not fighting like any species we've previously encountered. They appear to have been preparing for this engagement for far longer than our 73-day ultimatum period. Their weapons technology, while primitive in design, achieves effects comparable to our own systems through innovative application." "Clarify." Admiral Cortih consulted his tactical displays before responding. "They're using relativistic kinetic weapons, essentially rocks accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. They're employing directed stellar plasma as ammunition for energy weapons. They've weaponized antimatter in delivery systems our sensors have difficulty tracking. Most concerning, their tactical coordination suggests extensive training against galactic standard military doctrine." The silence from Galactic Command stretched on for several seconds before Chancellor Vexthara responded. "Admiral, you will press the attack immediately. Deploy all available forces. These humans must be eliminated before their resistance inspires other species to question Council authority." "Understood, Chancellor." All fleet elements, advance to engagement range. Begin concentrated bombardment of their homeworld. As the massive alien fleet began its final approach toward Earth, automated systems throughout the solar system transmitted final targeting coordinates to weapons platforms that had been waiting for this moment for decades. On Earth, in the Global Defense Command Center, President Morrison stood before the assembled representatives of humanity and delivered the words that would echo through galactic history. "Citizens of Earth, representatives of humanity. The alien fleet is beginning their final assault on our homeworld. They came here expecting to find a primitive species cowering in terror. Instead, they found the apex predators of our own world, united for the first time in our species' history against a common enemy." She paused, looking at the tactical displays showing 12,000 alien vessels approaching Earth orbit. They wanted to test whether humanity deserves to exist in their galaxy. Today, we show them that the question was never whether we deserve to exist. The question was whether the galaxy is ready for humanity. Today, we give them our answer. The largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin in earnest, and, for the first time since the formation of the Galactic Council, the outcome was genuinely uncertain. The aliens had brought overwhelming force to eliminate a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves fighting a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history preparing for exactly this moment. a species that didn't just resist extinction, but actively embraced the challenge of proving they belonged among the stars. The galaxy had declared war on humanity, expecting swift victory. Instead, they discovered why Earth had never produced any species capable of hunting humans. It was because humans were already the perfect predator.